prove. I wanna lose. Yeah, something to prove. You know that I wanna lose. Yeah, gonna leave this here. This right here gonna be that year. Yeah, that's too sincere. I don't really think I could be that clear. I'ma be right here, but y'all know that. Wanna feed my fist, try to hold me back. Y'all do that, try to hold me down. Karma is real and it's coming around.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to On the Clock Baseball. Today we have a very special episode, kind of doing a deep dive into the Rafael Devers Red Sox fallout. We're going to kind of highlight Rafael Devers' career with the Red Sox, talk about some different things, take you through the timeline of the fallout. I'm going to be playing some clips from different things that I talked about at the time that some of these things were happening, some of the things that we were saying over on the Pesky Podcast at Boston Sports Entertainment Network, and a whole lot of other stuff. But we got a lot to get into with you guys. If you've been following the story at all, you know that there is a lot of he said, she said drama that gets into it. But let's start from the very beginning. Rafael Devers was taken by the Boston Red Sox in 2013 in the International Player Draft. He quickly rose through the ranks and made his debut in 2017 against the Mariners, where he hit a home run for his first major league hit.
A little shift going on right here against him. Fly ball center field. Heredia racing back. This is deep. Back he goes. It is gone. Devers with his first major league hit, and he hits a bomb. And the Red Sox lead it 2-0.
Now that is the way to get your first major league hit done right there.
And Devers hammers one to center field. This ball headed toward the wall. It is back. It is gone. A home run. The first major league hit for Rafael Devers is a home run to center field. And the Red Sox lead it 2-0.
Devers' first career hit and home run actually came on my birthday in 2017, which is just another cool little thing to note. Another reason why I've always kind of had a connection to him as a player. Over the next several years, Devers quietly became a really good player. He really didn't become a star on the team, at least in the public eye, because we had guys like Chris Sale, Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts at the time, and Devers, by his own volition, just didn't want to be the center of attention. He didn't want to be a face of a franchise, but he was quietly starting to put together a really good career, really solid career, couple all-star appearances. And then it was after the Mookie Betts trade and then Xander Bogaerts walked that the Red Sox extended Devers on a 10-year contract worth north of $300 million that technically became an 11-year contract because it started the year after he was signed, because he had already agreed to his final year of arbitration. But it was really at that point where he was really vocal about not wanting to be a leader. He still wanted to be kind of the quiet guy in the clubhouse. He was never a leader. He just didn't want to be that guy. And it seemingly at the time, the Red Sox were okay with it because they signed him to the deal. And I wonder, now that we look back on all of this, I really wonder, did he want, or not did he, but did the Red Sox really want to extend him? Or was it a panic move after Bogaerts walked? And really, how soon after this contract was signed did Rafael Devers regret signing it? Because what we know that would come to move forward, that we're going to get to here in a little bit, it really got ugly on both sides. When I was first getting into content creation last year, one of the first videos I ever made was a video about Rafael Devers being better than David Ortiz at this point in his career, being, Devers coming into the first year of the contract, Ortiz being the same time frame that he came over from the Twins, and at that point in their careers, Devers clearly being the better player. Let's check out that video. Today we are diving into the question, is Rafael Devers better than David Ortiz? This is a question that's been on my mind for a while, since last year, actually. I was at a Red Sox Twins game in Minnesota. It was actually the game where Joe Ryan shut out the Red Sox, and it was also the one where David Hamilton made his big league debut in the starting lineup. He had pinch run the night before, but this was the first game he was ever in the starting lineup. And I was sitting down the third baseline, and there was an older Red Sox fan sitting behind me. We were kind of just talking shop before the game, and I made the comment that I feel like Devers is kind of the next Ortiz, or like the predecessor to what Ortiz was for the Red Sox. And this older fan kind of scoffed at that and said something to the extent of, there will never be another David Ortiz, right? To which my response was, yes, obviously, but if somebody could do it, it's Rafael Devers. And he was like, yeah, I guess you're right. But that kind of got my mind going and thinking about this as a question, because I do feel like it's not necessarily nostalgia goggles when it comes to Ortiz. And this is not to disparage David Ortiz or to say that I didn't like him, because he was a childhood hero of mine. Like, I grew up in Minnesota, saw him with the Twins, but then when he went to the Red Sox, who are my team, he turned it on to another level. He became Big Papi. He became that postseason hero, that clutch hero, that guy that we as Red Sox fans absolutely to this day love, that played for the Red Sox for 14 years. But I really want to kind of break this down by the numbers, because I do think, and I know that there's probably going to be some comments on this video telling me how stupid you guys think I am, but I do think when it's all said and done, Devers might actually end up being better. So let's dive into some of these numbers. For this specifically, I wanted to look at their stats through their age 26 season, which coincidentally lines up to the end of last year for Devers and the end of his Twins tenure for David Ortiz. I think a lot of people forget that with the Twins, David Ortiz was not the prolific hitter he became when he got to Boston. In fact, through the first 6 seasons of their careers, the only stat that Ortiz beats Devers in is on base percentage. Rafael Devers has him across the board in everything else that StatHead looks at. WAR, you have Rafael Devers at 18.8, with David Ortiz at only 2.6. Devers played in 842 games compared to Ortiz's 455. 3,614 plate appearances as opposed to 1,693. 919 hits as opposed to 393. 172 home runs as opposed to just 58 that Ortiz hit with the Twins. 555 RBIs as opposed to 238. 29 stolen bases as opposed to 4. I don't really care about that because neither of them were prolific base stealers. A 280 batting average as opposed to a 266. Of course, we talked about this one. Ortiz gets the on-base percentage at 348 versus 343, but they're almost right there. A 510 slug as opposed to a 461 slug. An 853 OPS as opposed to an 809 OPS. Those are both still pretty good. And a 124 OPS plus as opposed to a 108 OPS plus. Now, obviously, when David Ortiz came to Boston, he became an absolute beast. But the fact is that through their age 26 seasons, Devers' numbers absolutely dwarf Ortiz's numbers when he was with the Twins, right? And that's all I'm saying, is that with Devers off to this much better of a start to his career, does he have the potential to, when it's all said and done, be better than Ortiz? And I personally think he does. I'm not saying he's going to be, but he's locked up for the next 9.5 seasons, which will put him only at his age 36 season. Now, when you look at Ortiz's career numbers, obviously that paints a different picture, and you can obviously see the absolute beast that he became. And of course, outside the numbers, Ortiz was an absolute legend here. He was a clutch hitter in the postseason here. He has the 3 World Series championships. There's no denying the great player that David Ortiz was. And he's always going to go down as a Boston legend. But on the flip side of that, when you look at what Rafael Devers is doing, he shows up in the clutch too, right? Like, they both have a flair for the big moment. Like, Rafael Devers, he was absolutely great in the 2018 run. He was great in the 21 run, even though they didn't win. And he always shows up against the Yankees, right? We saw that again recently. He owns the Yankees. He owns Garrett Cole. They're both Yankee killers. When you get down to it, they're so similar on so many levels. It's absolutely crazy. Like, even with the defense, when he was with the Twins, David Ortiz was an average to below average first baseman. I think he played a little bit of first base with the Sox, but he was never a great first baseman. Obviously he became the DH, And Devers has never been a great third baseman. Obviously, he's picked it up a little bit this year, but he's slated to be the DH within the next, I'd say, 3 to 5 years, depending on how they handle the last 3 years of the Masataka Yoshida contract. So there's just so many similarities between them. But when you look at what the numbers could be moving forward, that's where I think, are we seeing another version of David Ortiz, but a better version of David Ortiz, which is absolutely crazy to say and think about, because David Ortiz was an absolute legend and put up unbelievable numbers. But I want to take a look at these numbers and what they could be moving forward. So let's take a look at Devers. So when you take a look at the stat that I have pulled up, you can see that they've added the first half of this season's numbers to this as well when you look at the career. And we're just going to cherry pick home runs because I don't want to run through everything. It would be way too long. So looking at Rafael Devers' career stats, he's already got 193 career home runs. On a conservative side, I would be willing to bet he hits about 10 more this year. By the end of this year, he should be somewhere in the ballpark of 203 home runs. And then let's just say he averages 30 home runs over the next 9 seasons with the Boston Red Sox. That's somewhere in the ballpark of another 270-ish home runs, which would put his career total at that point at 473, which is, again, only through his age 36 season. Oddly enough, if that's the number through this contract, that would put him exactly 10 home runs under what Big Papi hit with the Red Sox, because David Ortiz with the Red Sox has 483 home runs. Now, that might not be the number. There's a lot of things that are going to come into account over this next decade, but that would be pretty interesting. At that rate, he would need just 68 home runs to tie Big Papi's career total. And I believe personally that many of these years he's actually going to hit more than 30, because he already has a 38 home run season, a 35 home run season, and a 33 home run season. And I also have to believe that he's going to play beyond this contract. Again, at the end of this contract, he's only going to be 36 years old. So the potential for him to play another 2 to 4 years after that, I mean, like, he could very easily play till he was 40, just like Big Papi did, and have a 20-year career as well. And I do wholeheartedly believe that when it's all said and done, Devers will have more home runs than David Ortiz. Now, will the rest of his stats be better? We don't know. Will he have more world championships? We don't know. It would be nice as Red Sox fans if we did, but we don't know the direction that this team is headed right now. We don't know where we're going to be over the next 10, 15 years. So this is still something that has to play itself out. But all I'm saying here is that we're looking at a guy who could be just as good, if not better, than David Ortiz when it's all said and done. And honestly, that's a pretty special thing considering how great David Ortiz was. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know how this is going to play out. It's just something that's been on my mind since I had that conversation at Target Field last year. And I really just wanted to talk about this and really look at the numbers to get these thoughts out of my own head and hope that maybe it sparks some thinking, maybe it sparks some conversation, maybe it sparks some food for thought, because I do feel like Devers does fly under the radar a little bit on a national scale. Like, we all know him and love him here in Boston, but he's not necessarily the biggest star in the league. Like, there's so many great players right now, like we talked about earlier. So I just wanted to get this out there and thinking about this and realize that depending on how things play out, we're possibly witnessing something amazing here, and an amazing player that, like, I want him to spend his entire career in a Red Sox uniform. Like I said, I think he's going to play past this contract because he will only be 36 when it ends. And I don't know if he ends up in a Red Sox uniform after that. I hope so. And I don't know where the Red Sox are going to be in the next 10, 15 years. So it's just something that, you know, we'll look back at this and see. If I'm still making videos, I'll do a follow-up when he retires, and we'll see how it really shook out. But that's all I wanted to do, was just create some conversation. Now, clearly a lot of Red Sox fans were going to disagree with me on this because David Ortiz is David Ortiz, 3-time World Series champion, Hall of Famer. I do still think, at the end of the day, Rafael Devers has better career numbers than David Ortiz. I just do. They're projected to be that way. Obviously, this video is now, and the argument that I'm making in the video in terms of Red Sox glory, it's rendered moot because a lot of those stats are going to come with the San Francisco Giants. Sorry to interrupt this video, but I want to talk to you for a minute about the channel's partner, W Energy. Now, I know you're probably thinking, oh, great, another product that you're going to try to shove down our throats because you get a cut if we use your code at checkout, right? And full transparency, I do. But I'm not going to tell you to go buy something. I'm not going to tell you to go use this product. I'm going to tell you why I use this product every day, and then you can decide for yourself whether you want to try it or not. Now, look, I'm someone that's always on the go, right? Like, I'm always doing something, whether it's making content for the channel, taking care of the dogs, working on daily house chores. Like, I'm always busy. It seems like I'm on the go from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep. And then even when I lay there in bed and can't sleep, I'm like, I should be up doing something. And how do I keep going? I need caffeine. Now, I've been a caffeine addict basically my entire life. And I've tried it all. I've done the sodas, diet sodas, sugars, energy drinks. I've done the sugar-free energy drinks. I've done it all. And it all comes with that jitters, that crash, that kind of makes it pointless because once you get jittery, it's like, it's hard to work on stuff. And that's why W Energy is different. Let me tell you, like, I'm a sucker for this stuff. I buy it in bulk. Like, I recently dropped like $1,000 on an order. And once they found out it was me, they're like, that's like the single biggest order we've ever had. And it's outside of like retailers and stuff. And it's like, it's crazy. Because these guys are just so good. They use coffee bean extract to make their caffeine, and there's just something different about it. Like, it doesn't give you that jitters. It doesn't give you that crash. It leaves you focused, which is something that I find for basically drinking caffeine for 20 plus years. Like, that's important. And they don't use any artificial colors or dyes. The ones that do have color are made from like fruit extract and things like that, and natural fruits and natural flavors. And there's vitamins, there's minerals. Let me tell you about a couple of my personal favorite flavors. I'm really partial to the Dub Sludge, which is a Granny Smith apple with secret sauce flavor. I also really like the Callow Cream, which is a mango orange cream blend, and the Dragonade, which is a dragon fruit pink starburst lemonade. But rest assured, whatever flavor you're into, they've probably got something for you. They've also got non-caffeinated hydration flavors, a bunch of really cool anime collab tubs, and some awesome merch. And you know me, I'm all about that merch life. But that's really beside the point. The point is that these guys are trying to do things differently. They're trying to take on big energy. They're trying to take on this whole like perception of artificial colors and dyes and chemicals in our food and drink, which we have to deal with every single day. But with W, you can deal with it just a little bit less. Now, that's something that I can personally get behind. And surprisingly, so can my doctor, because I've been bringing like energy drinks and stuff to my doctor for years once I found zero sugar stuff and saying, hey doc, do you think this is really good for me? And every time she looks at it and goes, not really. There's aspartame or there's something, in here that's not good for you, or there's, this chemical, that chemical, this thing or that thing. And every time she's like, no, I really don't condone you drinking this. I understand you're going to because you're a caffeine addict, but I can't like endorse this. But when I brought a tub of W Energy, she looked at it and she went, yeah, like, the worst thing in here is the artificial sweetener, and it's not even the worst one. Again, I want you to make the decision for yourself. Head on over to w.gg, peruse the website, and see if you can find something to fit your taste buds. Now for the part you've all been waiting for. While you're there, use my promo code BCX3 for a select percentage off of your order of tubs, shakers, and merch. You can drink W to conquer a task, all while being better to your body, mind, and spirit. Now back to the video. Now, this is where the drama starts to come in, because very early on in the offseason last year, the Red Sox were linked to Alex Bregman, Nolan Arenado, both Gold Glove caliber defenders, both elite defenders, both defensive upgrades over Rafael Devers, who just did not have great defensive numbers at third base. Granted, he was trying to make himself better, but he really was paid and still is paid for his bat. So I can see, why the Red Sox were trying to make the upgrade. The problem here, and where the disconnect really started, I think, with this Breslow regime and Devers, is that throughout these rumors that were very prevalent in baseball, you had all sorts of reporters talking about him, they would lie to Devers. And they would say, these rumors are not true. We're not going after Arenado. If we do go after Bregman, he's a second baseman. You also had Alex Cora, who was really campaigning for the Red Sox to sign Alex Bregman as a second baseman. He talked multiple times throughout the offseason of Alex Bregman as a second baseman, even though Alex Bregman has never played second base at the big league level. Has not done it. But they kept campaigning for him as a second baseman and telling Devers, no, you're our third baseman. It's cool. And then right before spring training, they sign Bregman, and they go to Devers and go, oh, by the way, he's the third baseman now. You're the DH. And that's really where the discourse started, because they really kind of came at Devers, blindsided him out of nowhere after basically lying to him all off season long, saying, you're our third baseman. Then they take that back and they basically tell him, you suck defensively, which is the truth. I can't excuse that it's the truth, but they went about it in a way that really rubbed him the wrong way. The discourse started, and let's take a look now at some of the things that we said on Pesky when that news broke.
This one's titled Media Mayhem, and this has absolutely been one hell of a shit show all week from the Boston reporters down there at spring training. And we're going to start it off right with Devers, being asked about, not playing third, being DH.
So I think, and, I don't try to read too much into the actual interview itself. I know Fabian is going to jump in here in a minute and really kind of break down the translation for us. But even I, knowing a little bit of Spanish now, I was like, he's not relaying everything that he's saying. Even someone like me who's, just starting to dive into the language knew that. And like the thing that I go back to, though, is when at the time that this interview took place, he had allegedly just been notified 2 days earlier that the conversation to move him off third was even a thing. And I've seen a lot of people say, oh, yeah, you don't want to have those conversations till Bregman signs or until Arenado's traded here or whatever. But when you've got an organization that's going out there basically all off season long, they've been linked to one of those two guys. So Rafi knows there might be some stuff here that we're going to have to deal with if one of these guys comes over. And for nobody in the organization, Cora, Breslow, anybody, to say anything to him prior saying, hey, we're going after one of these guys. We might have to have some conversations if one of them gets here. That's on them, not him, to not have those preemptive talks. But what I really go back to, and you look into, even the interview after that with Yoshida, the Boston media is a damn joke at this point. They're just trying to start controversy. They're trying to start things. And I don't blame the players for not wanting to talk to them. And that's why I'm so glad that we are potentially repairing some of those relationships that we now have with the minor league guys. But like, can't the narrative just be, hey, we actually had a good offseason. We might be back. Like, what's wrong with that narrative to fire up the fans? The fire ups don't have to be negative. That's what I don't get about it.
Yeah. I look at it as one, the clips that we see on Twitter, Instagram, everything, that's not even nowhere near the whole entire, interview that they had with him. I think it was Chris Cotillo's the one that put the audio recording of the entire thing going out. But, me personally, I'm looking at it as it goes back to when we had Framey on. And, Fabian helped us out with that. And one of the biggest things with Framey, he said, was when there's a barrier and a lack of communication, when you're trying to communicate but you can't, you get frustrated. And the first thing Framey said, and you can go back to the podcast and listen to it, first thing he said was he gets frustrated and the shoulders come down, the arms go down, body language, and it looks bad for it, but you get frustrated, trying to communicate, but not being able to communicate, and then getting the same questions asked over and over again, rephrased, it would frustrate us, in the same way.
No, yeah. I mean, you see it. I mean, my time with the Red Sox, I was asked to translate for different departments from research and development to biomechanics to hitting. And, that's the easy way when you have somebody to translate for you at the moment, when you're not on a pitch clock to make a pitch or to get in the box and communicate something to your hitter, whatever it may be. That communication is very important, and finding ways to understand each other is very important. And I tell you what, the media did not do that for Rafi the other day. And now they kind of try to paint a picture of him as selfish, which we all know, if you are a real Boston fan, Carita, since he was drafted, since he was signed by the Red Sox, he's always been a diehard Red Sox, and he said it himself. And what they're trying to portray him as is definitely not the kind of person he is. He's definitely a competitor, and you want guys at the big league level, especially, to not want to relinquish their position. Right. You want them to take ownership and accountability for it, and that's what he's doing. He wants to get better. He wants to prove himself next season, or this coming season, that last year was last year. He wants to do better. And if we look at his numbers, they've been trending in the right direction. Just looking at his OAA, going from -8 to a -6, it's trending in the right direction. His best was in 2019 or 18, I believe. But I mean, he was a younger guy back then. And it's tough to watch. Luckily for the Red Sox, they have a really, really good manager, an experienced manager, a big league manager, a player first manager that knows how to deal with this kind of stuff. Alex Bregman is a professional himself. So I think inside the clubhouse, it is what you want. You want those guys to be ready to fight in, have the last game in, end of October and November. And you don't want guys to be comfortable. So I think Alex Cora is going to be the saving grace and lead this team to possibly a championship this year.
The Red Sox are no stranger to a situation like this, because in 2022, essentially what had happened was when we signed Trevor Story, that's what happened again. A situation that is happening right now has happened before, and they were saying, will Xander Bogaerts move to second base for Trevor Story? And that was the weird thing. The only difference here is that Rafael Devers is under contract for another 9-10 years, when Xander Bogaerts was in a contract year. I can see Xander Bogaerts not wanting to move off that position because he wanted to get as much money as he could, which he did from the San Diego Padres. And then ironically enough, Xander Bogaerts held his ground as shortstop, went to a new team, and guess where he moved? Second base. And I said that in one of my TikToks. I'm like, he wanted to value himself the best that he could. And now obviously Xander's playing shortstop because the Padres moved Tatis to right field, which was a smarter decision. But you look at that, and that's another situation that I can just say, like you said, Fabian, Alex Cora is no stranger. He's a professional. He won a World Series with this team, so he knows how to manage, and he's dealt with a situation like this before with Story and Bogaerts. So I think he'll handle it pretty well.
We're not talking about 37, 38-year-old Justin Turner like we were a couple years ago. And, he can't play third anymore, so he's got to DH or play first. Devers, well, yeah, there might be some better defensive options out there. And technically, yes, Bregman, I think, would be better defensively at third. This is a 28-year-old kid still, who is still in the prime of his career and has time to turn the defense around. So it's not like, and again, like Rob just said, he's locked up here for the next 9 years. He's got time to figure this out. And what he offers with the bat, in my opinion, if he wants to stay at third and, keep learning, you afford him some leverage to do that because of what he offers to this team. I don't think, everybody says he's such a good hitter. People forget or don't realize the kind of hitter he is. I did some stuff on this last year. At 27 years old, now obviously what Poppy would become for us was phenomenal, but 27-year-old Devers was miles better than 27-year-old Poppy, and that just happened to be coming into last year, the time frame for both of the beginning of their careers where Ortiz was leaving the Twins. So you look at that stretch, And through that stretch, Devers numbers dwarfed Ortiz. And if he keeps on pace, like we're talking about a guy who could potentially end with 500-600 home runs, over the next 9 years. He's got what, 200 already? Like he could be one of the greatest offensive players of all time, and people still think of, oh yeah, he's just a pretty good hitter. Like they don't talk about him in that elite category, which he very well could be. So like Ortiz said yesterday, this isn't Mickey Mouse at third base. This is your franchise guy right now, whether he wants to be the face or not.
If you limit him going, my theory is if you limit him going to his left, he's going to be better. And that's what Story provides. I think he's more suspect when he goes to his left, in my opinion, than he is when he goes to his right.
One thing we got to look at also is look at the organization and staff, game day strategy and advanced scouting. How many times was he not put in the highest trafficked area and not in a good defensive position based on, a scouting report or game day strategy? So advanced scouting has to be on point for him and put him in the best place on the field to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
When you talked about the the translator not translating everything necessarily verbatim word for word, and again, not that the guy's a bad guy, he's doing his job and all that, but why does that happen, especially in today's world where somebody knows that someone's going to look at it and go, that speaks Spanish, and go, that's not what he said, or that's not how he said it. So why does that sort of thing happen? Like what is the point of all that?
I think after the first few times that they answered the question, the frustration set in for both of them. Like, again, and with Rafi's no answer, and he's telling them, he welcomed Bregman, and he's ready for his position, and that's where he wants to play, and that's where he's going to play. I think it could be said a little bit better by the translator, in my opinion. But when you're in the heat of the moment, you're taking the same question over and over and over again. Do you want to give the exact same answer? There was one big thing missing in that interview room, and that is feel. There was no feel in that room. They could see his body language. They can see him getting agitated. They can see him not wanting to answer the direct question. Yet they kept poking and poking and poking, and they found their story one way or another. It could have been a good one, but decided to go negative with it. And bottom line is feel. They don't read the room. They just want to get their story and sell subscriptions, or I don't know, whatever it is, if they sell newspapers, if they still sell them. But it's not about the player, and it's not about the organization. It's about the story. And right now, since everything's, in my opinion, looking good, going good, you see a lot of guys are back and healthy and looking for a chance to contribute on a daily basis. And instead of focusing on that, it's let's find a way to make this a juicy story instead of hey, we're building, let's go, we're coming, or something, something positive.
My statements both on this podcast and on Pesky, I still stick by them. I still strongly believe them. I do believe that the Red Sox wronged Rafael Devers in this situation. I can look back at it in hindsight and be like, yeah, it was the right decision to move him to DH. But I do think that they went about it the wrong way. And I do think, as much as I blame FSG, as much as I blame Breslow, Alex Cora deserves some of the blame here, because he's supposed to be like this, big players manager, and he can't even go talk to his star player and tell him to move because he's afraid of Bregman's his guy, and he's afraid of that's going to sour the relationship between him and Devers. I don't get why Cora wasn't more involved in some of these conversations. Why it had to be Breslow will never make sense to me. I think Cora really should have been at the forefront of these conversations. And I think they wanted him to be, and he didn't want to be. And that's just a thing that sticks out to me. But Devers obviously struggled for his first 20-ish plate appearances this season, and then he went off. And since then, he's been the best DH in baseball. He was on pace for a career year. And then when Tristan Casas went down, there was chatter about Devers moving to first base, which, frankly, to this point, I don't understand why those conversations ever even took place. Devers, to me, and rightfully so, he said no because you told me that I suck at fielding, which, again, is true. Okay? Devers is not a good fielder. Now, could he play serviceable first base? Sure, absolutely. But I do think that the notion of him being an option at first base is stupidity on the Red Sox part, and possibly stupidity on the Giants part now that they're giving him ground balls over there. I just don't see it. Like, he was flourishing at DH, on pace of having a career year. Let him flourish over there. He sucked defensively at third base, and now this is a guy that you want taking ground balls at first base, which is arguably, like, people think that first base is a slouch position. It's not. It's one of the hardest positions because you're involved in almost every single play. This is not a guy that I want manning first base. I love Rafael Devers. This is not a guy that I want manning my first base. I never did. But let's take a look at what I said at the time.
Essentially got asked and approached by Craig Breslow to go play first base, and he essentially said, no, I'm not going to play first base. And I will pull up the quote right now because I have it all pulled up right here. He said, and I quote, "I know I'm a ball player, but at the same time, they can't expect me to play every single position out there. In spring training, they talked to me, basically told me to put away my glove, that I wasn't going to play any other position but DH. So right now, I just feel like it's not an appropriate decision by them to ask me to play another position. It was the GM, Craig Breslow, that I spoke with. I'm not sure what he has with me. He played ball, and I would like to think he knows that changing positions like that isn't easy." And I read that quote and I sat there, and I'm kind of siding with Rafael Devers on this one, just due to the fact that he does have a point. I mean, yeah, everybody, and obviously you're going to see it on Twitter, you're going to see it everywhere. Like, people are going to bash on him, and those people, those aren't really fans of the team. They're just people, obviously they are fans of the team, but they're not the, those kind of fans that are like kind of like whatever and get angry at every player. You got to look at it this way. Rafael Devers, like they said, he got asked to change his position literally 2 months ago when Alex Bregman came to this team, or 3 months ago when Alex Bregman signed with the Boston Red Sox, and he got told, hey, you're going to be the DH of the Red Sox. And that's essentially what he was doing. He trained for it. And then now, a month after he got told that, a month into the season, he's finally adjusting to being a full-time DH. And you're going to tell him, hey, grab a glove, you're playing first base. Like, I understand he's your highest paid player and he's the face of your franchise, but at the end of the day, you got to understand, like, you're having a player you just told, hey, go to a new position. Hey, we're going to have you go to another new position. Like, no, I don't think it's good for, obviously, him. And that comment, when I read it and when the way it sounds, yeah, he sounds a little pissed off, and he has every right to be pissed off. I mean, should he go to first base? And I think it would be better for his long term and towards the back end of his career. Yes, I do agree that he could play first base, and it could benefit the Red Sox, because then you could add another bat into that lineup. You could call up Roman Anthony and have him DH. You could call up someone and put them somewhere. You could, when Yoshida comes back, if he's fully healthy, you can put him at DH. It makes a lot of sense. But right now, it makes no sense due to the fact that he just got told you're DHing, and now you want him to suddenly change his position. I mean, I read something saying Trevor Story could go to first base, or that was an option thrown out there that could happen, and you can call up Marcelo Meyer. There's options, but I think he should be like, hey, I think he's being honest. I'm not moving to first base. I think he probably said, hey, you have options in the free agent market. Why don't you go sign a free agent first baseman? So I can see why he's angry.
Well, real quick, Brandon, before you know, because what I'm about to say might switch what your opinion says. Of course, once again, I reach out to our great translator and sponsor, Fabian Castoreno. And, well, if I was the Boston Red Sox, I would fire Devers' translator.
Oh,
because
What? Okay, yeah. What was actually said?
Dever literally says that if he has to play first base, they can't expect him to do it right away because he's not like other players that can adapt quickly. He never says he won't do it. He just needs more time to adapt to playing first base.
Yeah, whoever the translator is, he needs to go on a bus far, far away from Boston because he's making Rafael Devers seem like a diva when he's not.
Can we get that on a tweet? The actual translation.
Yeah,
but it doesn't necessarily change what I have to say. I said it last podcast. This is a guy who in walks, things like that, is putting up career numbers, and he's settling into the DH role very well. I don't want to mess with that because I think that now that we got over the drama of third base, which I don't even want to talk about right now, we got over that. He's settled into DH, and now you ask him to do first base. I get it. There's two sides of this, right? And I understand both of them. I understand the side of he's a ball player. He should do what his manager says. 100% understand that. At the same time, he's not a guy who's gone out there and played first base before. We all sit here and act, or I say we, meaning the Boston fan base and the Boston media, we act like he could just pick up his glove again and go play it. He's never played it, and that's a fact. And they told him when they moved him DH, they told him, put the glove away. That's another thing. They said, put your glove away. We don't want your glove anymore. You are the DH. They were very stern in that. And the thing that I go back to when you take the ball player stuff out of the equation, look at any person in any job ever. And I experienced this a lot when I worked in the film industry. They hire you to do one thing. They forget to hire somebody to do this. So you're on the job site and they say, hey, I know we hired you to do this, but now you also got to do this because we forgot to hire somebody. Mm-hmm. And my response to that was usually like, well, then go hire somebody. I'm not going to wear two hats. And usually, yes, as an underpaid American, I would throw the money equation into it. Like, yeah, if you're going to throw me a little bit more money, I'll go do it. That's not part of this equation because Rafael Devers, he's got his money, he's got his bag no matter where he plays. But you can't just expect somebody to go pick it up and do it when they've never done it. And you wouldn't expect that of anybody at your day job. I don't know why we expect it of athletes who have never, like, it's one thing if he was a utility player, right? And he's got some experience over there. It's like, okay, we're going to move you out of utility. You're primary first base now, but he's never done it. So why is he your best option?
Yeah, I've seen something too on MLB on Fox. I just saw this after the other one. He also said here in the club, I don't know if this translation's written now that hearing about the translation being messed up, it could be wrong, but he says here in the clubhouse, thankfully, the relationship that I have with my teammates is great. I don't understand some of the decisions that the GM makes. Next thing you know, someone in the outfield is going to get hurt and they want me to play in the outfield. This is not like a troll. This is not MLB on Fax. This is like the actual MLB on Fox account, just so everybody knows. This is not, I thought it was that I imagine I get faxed, but no, it wasn't MLB on Fax. It was the actual MLB on Fox account. So, I don't know how accurate that is, but it does sound like he's starting to get frustrated. And I hope to God that the Red Sox don't get him to a point where he gets frustrated enough to request a trade, because you don't want that, especially after all your star players getting traded or walking out in free agency. You don't want your star player to leave and be on bad terms, because if he's unhappy, then it's not a good look.
I'll add two things here, right? The first is that this is twice now that they have either purposefully or non-purposefully, I can't say whether it was purposeful or not, but they have directly misquoted the translation according to our translator, who personally I trust more than I trust MLB translators at this point. And I don't know if it's because they want to create this narrative, but to me, it seems like he's apprehensive about these moves, but he's also willing to do what the team wants because he does love this team. He does love playing for the Red Sox. We've seen it these past few weeks now that he's adjusted to DH. He's happy out there. He's vibing with the guys. He's even vibing with Bregman, who everybody wanted to paint them as enemies coming into this. They're having fun together. They're just gelling as a team. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up is what why are we not putting the blame on the Red Sox front office for this? Am I happy about everything they went out there and did this winter? Yes, they got Crochet. They got him extended. They brought up Campbell. They extended him. They brought in Bregman. They've made some great moves this offseason compared to what they've done in the past, but they seriously neglected to get some depth at first base. It wasn't like it was a secret. It's not like every first baseman in the organization just went down. We knew coming into this season, all we had was Tristan Casas. And if something happens to him, we don't have a backup plan. They didn't go out there, you can say, oh, we've got Romy, we got Toro, whatever. They didn't go out there and get serviceable first baseman backup plans. That's on the front office, not Rafael Devers.
Exactly. And, at the trade deadline, if not before then, I think we're going to be going for a first baseman, especially, if that's our only need besides the usual bullpen pieces. It's sad that this is the second time that Devers, gets cornered and reporters go off of what a translator says. And then once the actual video of Devers speaking comes out, then all of a sudden, boom, okay. Now that people can hear what Devers saying to actually speak Spanish, it's not 100% accurate of what everybody else is saying, and interpreting that way. But man, it's sad that Devers, got to go through with this, again. And something's got to eventually give. So, Yost, you got any opinions on this?
I mean, I kind of changed my mind on it now, hearing some of the thoughts. It's not really fair to the athlete to make somebody – I know I changed up. It's not fair to the athlete if he never played it before and expect him to play it at the highest level. Now it'd be a difference if he had some experience with it in, like, the minors and it needed to be on, like, an emergency basis. But – just making somebody say, oh, you're playing first base just for X reason, even though they told him not to, go out to the field. I think that's just crazy.
Yeah, it's not like, Tristan Casas, we had Bobby Dahlbeck. They were third baseman converted for first base. And we all know that Devers, it takes him a while to get used to things because he's, he struggles with change. We've all seen it. So I'm kind of interested to see how this plays out further. Is it going to die down? Doubt it. It's Boston media. They got to have something.
I was going to say, right, it's Boston media.
They got to have something to really have things going.
Again, I echo my sentiments here. I don't think Rafael Devers should be a first baseman, especially if you don't want him to be a third baseman. Like, if you want him to be a DH, let him be a DH. Now, should he, given the circumstances, said, yes, let's give it a shot? Sure. Again, don't know why Alex Cora wasn't more involved in those conversations, because he, in his press conferences, he references Craig Breslow as the person that had talked to him. Again, why wasn't it Alex Cora? That's a big thing in all this that a lot of people don't talk about is Cora, the player's manager, basically was sitting out these conversations. Why? Don't know. Doesn't make sense. Obviously, after this, John Henry flies to Kansas City, has a one-on-one with Devers. Cora is in the room for that, for whatever reason. So it's not a true one-on-one, I guess. They framed it as a one-on-one, but Cora was in the room for it. Don't understand that. If you're willing to sit in the room for that, why can't you be the one to have these conversations with him in the first fucking place? Don't get it. Don't understand it. But things smoothed over. We had Romy and Toro playing a serviceable first base for the Red Sox. So we didn't need Devers at first base. He was fine at DH. He was posting. He was putting up great numbers. And then, on Father's Day, he hits a home run in what would be his last at-bat as a Red Sox. We didn't know it at the time, but it would be. His last at-bat as a Red Sox, hits a home run against the Yankees to sweep the Yankees on Father's Day.
Is empty now.
Here is Rafael, skies one deep into left field. This thing is way back, and it is gone.
run over the red line. It is out of here for Devers, an opposite field homer. It barely got over the red line. Devers launches, and it is 2-0 Red Sox.
Over that red line, Skip. That's going to be a home run.
Now that's a huge hit. You know, the way runs have been hard to come by in this series. 2-0 feels like a much bigger lead than 1-0.
Giving Rafael Devers' final Red Sox career line against the Yankees at 119 games, 31 home runs, 78 RBIs, 22 doubles, and 6 stolen bases. You know, I think it's important to note that we, as fans at this time, were riding high off this sweep. Red Sox are playing good ball again. They're picking up some ground on the Yankees. We were getting ready to jump on the pesky podcast, have some good vibes, but then right as we're about to press record, the trade breaks. And let's take a look at some of our initial reactions to this trade.
Let's talk about what the hell, and we've talked about this numerous times, and we thought that it could not get worse than the Mookie Betts trade. And here we go again. After sweeping the Yankees, winning 8 of our last 10 games, it seems to me Craig Breslow and our ownership are punting on the rest of the entire season by trading away our best player. Like, Rob, let's I'll let you compose yourself. Brandon, let's start with you, man. What's going through your head?
So first of all, Rit, hi, what's up? I'm gonna say when I popped in here, I was genuinely in high spirits. I had a baseball question that I was gonna ask you guys. I'm gonna save that for another pod because as soon as we saw this news, it's like it went from high spirits, we swept the Yankees, I was feeling good on baseball life, to what the actual fuck are we doing? Because, you know, and like we've talked about the Rafael discourse since spring training. And, you know, we've come off very pro player. Like, he didn't want to move to DH. He didn't want to move to first. And can you blame him? Right? You couldn't blame him for not wanting to make those moves with the way they handled it. Yeah, maybe he could have handled it better, but to trade your best player, a player who kills your rival team for nothing. The report that I'm seeing right now is Devers for Jordan Hicks and Kyle Harrison. You couldn't even get Patrick Bailey, Camilo Doval. If we had to do this, there are better players we could have gotten. And even then, the trade makes no sense. I'm at a loss.
So, by the way, we played the Giants in 5 days. Just to be clear.
And by the way, you do know not Mookie Betts, Rafael Devers is going to go off against us single-handedly, because guess what?
He's gonna hit 5 homers in the series. I'm calling it right now.
They're gonna go there. Chapman's gonna be back for him. So where's he gonna play? Where he's comfortable, DH. Like, why?
They're not gonna move a Gold Glove third baseman who they have under a 6-year contract for Rafael Devers. So guess what? He's gonna play the same position that he bitched about playing for us, but then acclimated to, and then they tried to move him again, and he got pissy. So now they just trade. I have no words for this one. When they traded Mookie, was I upset? Yes. But I looked at it like, okay, he's got 1 year left on a contract. He's probably not coming back. I can at least, like, in my brain go, okay, that's why the front office traded Mookie, because of the expiring contract, and he was probably signing elsewhere. With this trade, we had him locked up for 8 seasons after this one. 8 seasons.
Oh my God.
Okay. Let's just break this down. Like, so in the offseason, he had, first off, I heard from an MLB player on the Boston Red Sox himself, and I'm not going to mention his name, but he said the Red Sox have the worst people translating in all of MLB that he's seen. You don't believe me that it's don't believe me? Look at how well they handled Yoshida's opening press conference. The guy didn't know what he was talking about whatsoever, wasn't clear with Yoshida. And then we're going to give Devers somebody who has absolutely zero idea how to actually translate for him to make him look like the villain. And in return, you said you asked him nicely, okay, you're off third base. You're going to be sit there and be replaced by Bregman, which should have been talked to before Bregman was even signed. He goes to DH. Just because he doesn't want to play first base anymore, but he's killing the ball. He's your best hitter.
He was having / is having a potential career year.
I just don't understand the logic here by the Boston Red Sox. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like, this is definitely worse than the Mookie Betts trade. Like, you could have went out and got a guy like Logan Webb, who's an ace potential pitcher. You're talking about, the Red Sox have a good pitching. You need help in the starting rotation. Why don't you go out and get a guy who's worked with Andrew Bailey before, and Logan fucking Webb, who has experience working with Andrew Bailey, who can pitch to a Cy Young caliber. It's just, this team makes me furious all the time. It makes sense because now you open a DH spot, so now Yoshida can go into the DH. But yeah, let's just trade our franchise player who was locked up for 13 years I just don't understand this, and I can't even form words right now. This is just utter. This team's failing was the $313.5 million contract comes with responsibilities to do what is right for the team, and that Devers did not live up to those responsibilities. They had enough and traded him. He's not he's not a captain. It don't matter. You're paying the guy to hit. That's what you're paying the guy to fucking hit. And that's what he did. And if he didn't want to be a captain, nobody said he had to be a captain. Yes, I understand he's been here longer than anybody on the team, but there's guys that are in there like Trevor Story who could step up as franchise leaders. There's other guys who could step up there as leaders in that clubhouse. And if Devers doesn't feel comfortable with it, it's not his title. He didn't say, I want to be the captain of the Red Sox. I want all the responsibilities. Mm-hmm. No, he just wanted to play baseball and get paid. And now he's getting that, and the Red Sox owe him that money. So unless the Giants take off a load contract.
The Giants are taking the entire contract.
Wow, okay. Wow. Okay. Wow.
He wasn't doing what was best for the team. What was he doing? He was mashing the fucking baseball. Let's look at this logically, okay? They told him, throw your glove away. You're not a good fielder. We don't want you playing third. He was reluctant, but he moved to DH. And he did what was best for the team. Then they said, hey, we could use you at first. He said, nah, I'm good here at DH. Now, if things were going wrong at first since then, maybe I could see them feeling this way. But what happened at first? Abraham Toro, Romy Gonzalez, they have not been slouches over there. Nick Sogard was there for a while. Nobody that we have put at first base in the absence of Tristan Casas has been a slouch. They have done a solid job at first. Maybe not caliber for a winning team, but a solid replacement level player. And I personally don't think Rafael Devers could do as good defensively or better than any of those three guys I just mentioned. So how is he not doing what's best for the team?
Here we go. Robert Murray.
Saying no and staying at DH is what's best for the team.
Our good friend Dakota Esri, who couldn't make it tonight, which I'm glad he couldn't make it, because we might not even talk.
We wouldn't be talking Mariners anyway.
We're not talking Mariners, but he just sent us the full trade. San Francisco Giants are acquiring Rafael Devers for the from the Boston Red Sox for Jordan Hicks, Kyle Harrison, James Tibbs, and Jose Bayo, according to sources familiar with the deal. So we're getting 4 people, which is one more than what we got from Mookie Betts.
I feel I went out. The reason why I went around to look, I was looking for my jersey, and I was going to ask, what the fuck do I do with this now? Because I had ready. JD Martinez gone. Mookie Betts traded. Rafael Devers traded. Stories here. I honestly think I'm a curse. Yeah. Fade Line's curse is back in the big 2025. Who would have thought, guys? This year has been the worst fucking year, honestly. Like, you think it could get any worse? You think it could get any worse? You know, let's see. Let's go down the hill. You have the team being mediocre with big expectations. Then I'm like, oh, I'm happy. You get dumped by your girlfriend. Besides the point there. But then you're like, okay, it can't get any worse than this. Then your favorite fucking player on the team gets traded 2 months later for a bag of fucking Doritos. Like, this makes no sense. It really don't. And I'm not trying to be bashing on the ownership, but this is just sad. This is just fucking sad, dude.
Unfortunately, Jonathan Papelbon tweets out, everybody calm down. Devers isn't getting traded. I'm wondering, like, what he thinks he knows that no one else. And one thing that I've always wondered, because Gabrielle Starr, the Giants are taking the entirety of Devers' remaining salary. He's owed $254 million on a contract that runs through 2033. He also gets a $2 million bonus for getting traded.
What? So he gets paid to get traded. Oh my god, get a load of this. I'm not even gonna bash Devers because he did nothing wrong. Again, he did nothing wrong.
Yeah, I can't.
So and an all around, laugh at the Boston Red Sox. Not only are the Yankees laughing at us because Aaron Judge was supposedly a couple seasons ago going to sign with the Giants, and then, ends up signing with them. But then the Giants get our best player. Like, overall, our best hitter. Like, it's crazy.
There it is. Rafael Devers is a San Francisco Giant, and we're reeling as a fan base at this point. Now, over the next couple of days, things would come out, which really seemed like the Red Sox trying to trash him on the way out. A lot of this I take with a grain of salt. They said that he was mad at Christian Campbell for offering to play first base, which, first of all, Campbell didn't offer to play first base. The Red Sox asked him if he wanted to play first base. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but there was a lot of things, that were said on the way out. And after we had a few days to digest the trade, it just so happened that the Red Sox were flying to San Francisco to play the Giants and the newly acquired Devers. So let's take a look at what was said prior to the series.
I was in the middle of a podcast also, and we just stopped what we were doing when we got like the ticker, like the notification on our phones. I thought it was like a joke or something. Well, actually, at first, yeah, I got like, the tweets. I thought maybe like Jeff Passan got hacked or something, or, because again, it's just the nature, the timing of the trade.
Mm-hmm.
We're so far away from the deadline. Nobody was expecting this. We needed it. I mean, the Giants, just speaking for like Giants fans, this is exactly like just the influx of energy that we needed, where all these moves that we've been making, both big and small, through the draft, trading for like prospects, it had to culminate in something. And so for us, this is exactly as you said, whether it was Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, we kind of had Carlos Correa at one point, and then we decided to say no. We were just kind of looking for that offensive catalyst, someone to truly build our lineup around. And I mean, this completely exceeded expectations. Just the night before, like Bob Nightingale, a couple other reporters were saying that like the Giants were kind of doing exploratory talks for like Josh Naylor, Eugenio Suarez, and like, no, Buster Posey goes, no, hold my beer, right? I could do something better than that. And so this was, again, like the shock factor and then the relevance of it all, still blown away, right? Like a couple days later now, 5 days later, 6 days later. So yeah, I mean, even though the Giants, we just broke a 4-game losing streak, I mean, you wouldn't have known, I think the morale, the vibes are high right now.
Yeah, I gotta say, I gotta give Buster Posey huge props. He's got balls the size of grapefruits, and he's able to get, done what no other, San Francisco GM has been able to to secure the big fish. You know what I mean? And I watched a press conference, and Brandon, I want to get your opinion. The biggest takeaway in the press conference that I seen was, dude, that is the first time in quite some time I seen a Devers interview press conference with a translator that knew what he was doing, and actually felt like he wanted to be there, because here in Boston, the translator for Devers was absolutely atrocious. Through this whole thing, from back in spring training, all the way up until recently.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've talked about it many times on here. The Red Sox translator that was translating for him, absolutely horrific, in my opinion. I mean, every time that a quote would come out or a story would come out and they would say, oh, he said this, he said that, we would be live podcasting about it, and our translator would text you and say, that's not what he said. So, I mean, that happened how many times to us? Where I think both times I was in the middle of a rant or something, and you said, hold on. Fabian just texted me, and he said that he actually said this, and then it kind of really changes the perspective. It really does. And I also want to touch, I'll go into my Giants notes here first, because you brought up the great point with Buster Posey, is that this side of it, first of all, you have two very contrast people working in this deal. You have Craig Breslow, who is cold, calculated. He's seemingly forgotten he was ever a baseball player, and he's driven strictly on this Yale analytics side of it, which I disagree with. I think you got to let the player come out a little bit more. If he had, maybe this wouldn't have happened, because you see Buster Posey, this guy who is not dumb by any means. I'm not calling Buster Posey dumb when I say that, but he hasn't forgotten that he was a ball player. And I think something that, and to show, first of all, that he's not dumb, the first person that we asked for in the trade was Eldritch. And Posey said, what else you want? It wasn't happening. Posey wasn't going to give that up. And then Posey said after the deal, the two things that stood out when they asked him, where's Rafael Devers going to play? He said, we'll let you know when we talk to him. That is, if you know anything about what happened here in Boston prior to that, that is huge. And then he also said that when he signed the dotted line on this trade, it felt like a big moment, like he was back trying to get a big hit in the World Series or in a playoff run. It gave him that same adrenaline rush as when he was a player playing in those big moments. So that tells me that he thinks he did something special here. We as Boston fans know the kind of player that Devers is. There's a lot of the fan base that in recent months and recent years have turned on him, unfortunately. And I'm going to highlight a few things on that later on. But the last thing that I've got here is that Devers is also now just kind of opened up and said, you know what? You actually treat me with respect. You come to me like a person. You said, hey, let's talk about the options. I'll play wherever you want. Completely contrasts to all the blindsidedness here. And I still have to give so much blame to the way the front office handled it. Obviously, there's some other things that I'll talk about here in a few minutes. But to me, it's grossly mishandled by the front office. And I think completely contrasted. I think he is going to thrive for the San Francisco Giants over these next 8.5 years.
All he ever wanted to do is play baseball. All that extra stuff, that's not him. And when he went and signed the contract, he told reporters that, a couple weeks later, I don't want to be the leader. I just want to play baseball, and, looking at Ortiz's comments, I was on Boston Sports Summit last night, and Tim, kind of, made me think a little bit. Were Ortiz comments about ego, were they towards Devers or were they towards Breslow? Because that comment could have been either way. And I never thought of it that way, but I looked at it as a quote that from Batman that kind of summed it up. It's either you die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. And that's what the Boston front office is trying to do for Devers, make him the villain in this whole thing, when they never communicated whatsoever well. to him.
Absolutely written. That actually leads me into the other part of my notes here on what's come out in the last few days in the Boston front office, because will I have slightly a different perspective that I had when we were just initially on the last pod just reacting to the pure news. My perspective has not changed in the way that I still put 100% of the blame on this on the front office, on Craig Breslow, on the way that they have handled things, because the two things that I want to highlight the most is that, first of all, when they asked him to play first base, reports come out that he was open to playing first base were they to commit to him playing first base going forward. He was just tired of being jerked around. He basically told them, I will play first base if that is going to be, the next several years moving forward, and instead of DH. He doesn't want to move from third to DH, to first, back to DH on a whim. And to me, that's not an unreasonable ask. The way that the Breslow let it slip in the press conference that they're looking for a long-term solution at first base, which means that they're out on Casas, whether that's a DFA, whether they trade him for peanuts, who knows this offseason. He's out for the rest of the season. Tells me that Breslow in the front office is out on Casas. So to me, putting Devers at first base full-time wasn't that far of a stretch. If he was willing to go over there and do the work, if they were willing to make the commitment to him, and they weren't. And that's where it soured. And then you see the reports that he was allegedly, and I say allegedly because we don't know, we haven't heard it from his mouth, we've heard it from multiple sources though, that he was apparently angry at Campbell for saying that he would play first base. So apparently he saw it as a slight at his character and was kind of the mindset of, like, I wouldn't do that. Why would you do that? And I also wonder, is that the Red Sox asking Christian Campbell to play first base, saying, hey, we just locked this guy up, he'll do whatever we ask him to? Are they trying to slight Devers in that move? Right. And then
I think that came out as a false report.
Okay.
Because that same reporter reported something else. Tim was talking about it last night at Boston Sports Summit, because that same reporter went back and tried to, report something else, and that was also false too. Okay. And because someone said, well, I guess that's why you got fired from ESPN, because you, are posting false stuff.
See, and I've seen so many different things on it. I've seen, that it's a false report. I've seen that it's a real report. I've seen multiple sources of this and that. So I'm willing to believe it's a false report because it doesn't seem logistic. But even if it was true, there's a point, and regardless of what is true and what isn't in this, because I don't believe a lot of what the front office has to say. I think, like you said, they're trying to paint him as the villain on his way out of town. And I just I look at this, and yes, it got to a point, in my opinion, where Devers was not happy with his situation. Devers, I don't buy the narrative that he was a clubhouse cancer and that they had to get him away from the young guys or he was going to turn them into a bunch of divas. I don't buy that narrative. I could see maybe it was starting to trend that way with a little bit of his attitude. And I could see that because of the rifts that were, again, caused in this relationship by the front office, and that's where I'm going to stand firm, in my opinion, that it's 100% front office, that this was a move that, because of how bad they let things get, had to happen. There was no other way around this, but it's all because of what they created. So we got to a point where this had to happen, but it's their own doing. And that's where I stand at the end of it, is that I understand from a baseball sense why it had to happen. But I also can look at it and say, none of this is on Devers, because Devers never said, I want to be the leader. I want to be the franchise player. When Chaim Bloom signed him to this contract, which I look back and I wonder, did they ever really want to sign him here long-term, even Chaim Bloom, or was it just a panic signing after Bogarts walked? I have my suspicions on that. And then Craig Breslow comes in, he sees this big meaty contract that's allegedly hogging up all this money, because who knows what they're actually going to do with that money, if anything. We'll find out. But he looks at this and goes, well, here's a guy that we're paying X amount of dollars to. He doesn't want to change positions. He doesn't want to be the face of the franchise. He doesn't want to talk to the media. But it's all your own fault. and ultimately it had to happen because it's your own fault. And that's the part that just sucks, because as much as I know, like, you're not going to have those problems with him in San Francisco, Conrado. I'll tell you that right now. Like, I don't foresee it, unless something changes with your front office a few years down the line, then maybe we can come back and look at this in hindsight. But as it stands right now, I think that you guys are going to love this guy for the next 8.5 years.
I mean, so far so good. I mean, I know, right? We're like less than a week into this partnership, but I mean, what you're saying too about leadership and his either like willingness or to assume the role of a leader. Like, I mean, leaders come in different forms, right? But in terms of the Giants, I think that's where I think Devers fits in nicely. Is we already have vocal leaders. Logan Webb is without a doubt one of the big like vocal leaders of that lot of the clubhouse. Matt Chapman too, right? Who will be playing third when he returns from injury. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a good opportunity where, he's always, again, from afar, Rafi's always struck me as a guy like, I'm going to lead by example on the field, you know? And then in terms of what Rit was saying, it kind of helps that the Giants have other players that are from the Dominican Republic, So I think maybe that's kind of why our translator is a little bit more on the same page as Rafi. But I've got to say, like, I mean, of course, when you have a player of his, as accomplished as Rafi coming to the Giants, of course, you want to welcome him with open arms. But I've never seen a reception like the one that he got. I mean, like, to have Barry Bonds come out and everything like that, all the players. I mean, like, rightfully so that he's all smiles right now. And of course, there's a honeymoon phase for any free agent, or in this case, a trade candidate. But like, again, the timing of it seems to have come at a great time for both Rafi and the Giants, that I think is why I'm so much even more optimistic. Not just the fact that like of how talented he is.
Well, it comes at a time, and when you touch on time, then Rit, I've got a question for you. But the timing of this, even from the Red Sox perspective, I mean, obviously not great on our timing, but the cold, it showcases the cold, calculated move of Craig Breslow. And I don't know how cold and some of this may be coincidence, but that you can't change my mind on the fact that he waited till after the Yankees series when we were on a high. We're going to be gone on the West Coast for 10 days. And then he does this so that the fans at home get a big long break from any negative stuff that they can put on the team, because we're gone. We're on the other side of the country. He also does it right before a Mariners series where Rafael Devers made his major league debut and hit a home run in his first at bat, I don't know if it was his first at bat, but got his first hit as a home run at T-Mobile Park. And then we play the Giants, who you traded him to. So like the timing of this, if all of those are calculated, that's very shifty on Craig Breslow. And when we were talking about the leadership, you brought up something that made me wonder, and Rit, I would love your opinion on this. When you look at the leaders that we had in place when Rafi was here, when he was coming up, you had Mookie, who then Rafi sees disrespected and traded to the Dodgers. Then you have Xander, who is Devers' mentor. They're great friends. They have a great relationship. And then he sees them disrespected and they let him walk. Do you think that plays into I don't want to be a leader, at least off the field, because I've seen what you do to those guys?
I just don't think Devers ever wanted to be a leader. He was a big kid that Ortiz kind of, coached them to sign when he was 16, 17. And I just think he doesn't care about the business side of baseball at all.
No, he just wants to go out there and post on the field.
He wants to play. And the touch about Xander, even AC said, Xander, if you didn't take the money, you would have been stupid.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like I just look at Devers right now is in a really good spot. I don't think it was 100% calculated because the reports came out that the Braves contacted him early Sunday and said, yeah, we're out. So, maybe they were vying first for the Braves to see if they could get, a deal done with them first.
What do you think about the rumor? And I haven't heard anything, full disclosure, haven't found any concrete sources on this, but I've seen from multiple accounts, and even Carabas backed up that he heard wrinklings on this, but it wasn't confirmed how true it was, that the Mets wanted Devers, Duran, and Chapman for a major package. We don't know what was in that package, but Steve Cohen tried to get all three of those guys for a massive, massive return, allegedly.
Wow.
But I don't think, is the Mets farm system that deep to give us a major haul like that? I do know that San Diego was interested, they said. Toronto was interested, they said. But San Diego has a nice little farm system.
And I still feel strongly about this. Obviously the Christian Campbell thing has been proven to be hearsay, not true. And even in the press conference with Devers prior to the San Francisco series, when he was asked about that, you could see from the look on his face, like, what? I was never mad at that guy. Like, what are they talking about? So, that clearly not true, which just goes to show that, FSG really wants to trash him on his way out, which is really sad given the player that he was for the Red Sox. And, it's just, I really look at all this because really, and I know I said it in the clips, but the contrast between Breslow and Buster Posey really leads to what happens when you have a guy who puts his player hat on first before his Yale GM hat. And I don't know, it is what it is. And then, of course, in the series, Rafael Devers has to get his first home run as a San Francisco Giant.
Hits one high and deep to left and out of here. Rafael Devers says after the game, that meant a lot.
Well, who he hit it for and who he hit it against had meaning on both sides of the swing. And that was impressive.
But his power to the opposite field.
And when he got to Fenway Park, because of the Green Monster and the short distance to the fence in Boston, he constructed his swing to go that way. I mean, that was perfect, and he got that ball with backspin.
And Rafael Devers goes to the opposite field, and it's bye-bye, baby. Giants 3, Red Sox nothing.
Here's the 0-1 pitch. He drives this one down the left field line, going back on it to the wall. It is gone! Devers goes deep against the Red Sox, his first Giants home run to the opposite field, and it makes it 3-0 Giants.
Torture baseball continues with another one-run win. The Giants have played in 34 one-run games this season. Laura Britt and George Contos. We've got Rafael Devers joining us live from Oracle Park. Erwin Higueras will be translating for us. Rafael, what a week it's been for you. The trade, and now you hit your first home run as a Giant against your former team. What would you say has been the most memorable moment for you this week?
No, han pasado muchas cosas, pero gracias a Dios pudimos salir ganador hoy. y pude aportar algo al equipo y me siento bastante contento por eso.
Yes, a lot of things have transpired during this week, but just very happy that I was able to contribute to our first win with the Giants.
Rafi, George Contos here. Welcome to San Francisco and to the Giants, my friend. I was at your press conference yesterday when you were talking about how you have the power to leave the ballpark, whether it's to the pull side or the opposite field. And today you did that. You hit your first homer as a Giant to the opposite field. Are you going to do anything different in your preparation and your approach, or you believe that you can hit the ball out at any time?
No, no tengo que cambiar nada. Como lo dije ayer, no tengo que cambiar nada. Sé el tipo de bateador que soy y está frío y sé lo que puedo hacer en un play.
No. Like I said in the press conference, I know the type of player I am. I don't have to change anything. I have the power to all fields. So there is nothing that I'm going to need to change here.
Rafael, this organization clearly wanted you in a big way. They bring you over in this huge trade. You got showered with a cooler shower by Willy Adames. Is Willy Adames the most fun guy in the clubhouse that you've been interacting with?
Sí, pienso que uno de los compañeros más alegres que he tenido y me llevo muy bien con él y espero que podamos disfrutar mucho juntos.
Yeah, correct. I think he's the most fun player in that clubhouse. I like being around him, and I hope that we continue celebrating more wins together.
Rafael, thanks for stopping by. Erwin, thanks for translating for us. Congratulations on the win.
Thank you.
And of course, he's doing post-game interviews and things he never did as a member of the Red Sox. You know, he's doing all these things, and he looks happy. So really, when I digest this, and I look back on this as a whole, I think it was a bad marriage that had to end. Rafael Devers clearly not happy, at least in the last several months with the Red Sox. The front office clearly not happy with him. I still do put all of the blame, or most of the blame, on Breslow, on Fenway Sports Group, on Alex Cora, acknowledging that Devers was not the easiest person to communicate with, get along with. He does, or did, at least in a Red Sox uniform, have somewhat of an ego about him. He wanted to do things his way and really was not open to a lot of interpretation, position changes, things like that. I understand where the Red Sox can get frustrated on that. And I still think it's their fault, and I still think they could have handled it better. Ultimately, both things can be true. And that's it. You know, like, we as fans have to move on from this. Devers is gone. He is a San Francisco Giant now. It is what it is. The organization has to move on. The fans have to move on. And we will. We don't see Devers again till next year, presumably, barring a Red Sox-Giants World Series, when he returns to Fenway, and we'll see what that's like, right? Next year when he returns to Fenway, and the fans can really say their piece with him. I also want to just point out again, like, the calculated, I still do think it's a calculated move by Breslow, the timing and everything, but really, it's over now. It's done with. The saga is closed. We might have some things leak here in the next couple weeks. Still, tidbits of news might come out. And if they do, we'll cover them on the channel if we do get those. But ultimately, you know, we'll see Devers at least 8 more times throughout the rest of his contract, because every team has to play every team at least once a year. So the Red Sox will still see him over the years, but I think, you know, now the immediate thing is done. We as a fan base have to move on. Organization has to move on. We're still in a playoff hunt. We got the rest of the season to go, and that's what's important right now. So that's going to do it for me. Leave your comments, your thoughts on this whole matter, because this was a dramatic shit show, to say the least. And I'm glad it's over. I wish it never happened, but I got to move on for my peace of mind. Leave a like, leave a subscribe, comment your thoughts below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. We'll see you on the next one.